Hello friends, welcome to Civilspedia. In today's video, we'll be handling 4 topics. With respect to prelims, we'll be handling about the angel tax, about the recently disputed Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, and about the recent proclamation of President's rule in Jammu and Kashmir. With respect to mains, we'll be handling about strategy for New India at 75. So coming to our first topic, angel tax. Why is this term in news recently? Because the startups and angel investors, they have started receiving notice from the taxmen asking them to pay angel tax. So this is the news, right? So this notice asks to give the valuation of the company they have invested, the angel investors invested in. It even asks for bank statement of the angel investors, and there are many problems underlying in it. So first, let's understand what is angel tax. It's actually imposed on angel investors. So first, let's learn about angel investors. Who are angel investors? They're basically high net worth individuals who invest their personal income in a business startup, right? So they are classified as alternative fund investments by SEBI. Understood? So when you learn about alternative fund investments, please understand this covers angel investors, this covers venture capitalists, this covers the SME fund and many other categories. So please understand the first primary difference between the venture capitalist and angel investor, right? So these angel investors, as I told you, they invest their personal income in a business startup, wherein these venture capitalists, they are private pool of investment. So what they do is they collect investment from different private individuals or from companies, and they give that fund and they invest that fund in a business startup. So what is the primary difference? They are subjected to risk because they have collected fund from different people. Because of this, generally venture capitalists, they will govern how the fund is being utilized in a startup. So they will be generally a part of board of directors in a startup, wherein angel investors, they won't be part of the board of directors. They demand only equity. So this is the primary difference. That is why angel investors are many times called as business angels. Now, where did this come? Where did it all start? The angel tax. It is in the Finance Act of 2012 that included a provision in Income Tax Act. It included a section called as Section 56, which says the procedures for imposing angel tax. So I'll explain you the concept in simple. First thing, there is something called as fair market valuation of a company. So what is fair market valuation? It is the price that will be paid by a buyer when he is buying a company. Basically, this is price of a company. In layman term, we can say this is an index that determines value of the company, right? So if a company, it is raising capital at a value greater than fair market valuation. For example, if a startup is distributing shares at a value greater than the fair market valuation, then the difference, it is taxable under the angel tax provision. It is taxable up to 30%. So the higher value, the difference in the actual fair market value evaluation, the actual value at which they're raising capital, that is considered to be income from other sources. Because of this, this is subjected to taxation. So this is the problem. Now, what is the government saying about the angel tax, and what is the investors and the startup companies saying about the angel tax? For example, the government says this provision was included to prevent money laundering. It says many people who want to evade tax, what they do is they create shell firms under the name of startup companies, and they pump money into it. So this is the problem which government is saying. Also, it says any venture capitalist or any alternative investment fund that is registered under SEBI, they are exempted from the notice of angel tax. And one more important thing is any startup company that is started under the Startup India scheme, it did not get a notice about the angel tax. So the government says anything that is not under their monitoring, anything that is not being monitored by SEBI or the Startup India scheme, only those startups, only those angel investors, they are scrutinized. This is the stance of government. So what is the problem which the investors are saying? The problem is, as I told you, this fair market evaluation I was speaking about. Who gives this fair market valuation of a company? So this is actually, generally it is the chartered accountants or the certified investment managers. So these people, they assess a company and they give a fair market valuation. The problem is this fair market valuation, it is given based on book value of the company. So what happens is when a startup goes to file tax returns to a tax department, there is a strong difference in the value between the fair market value and the value at which the capital is being raised. So because of this, there's a strong disapproval from the tax department that the fair market valuation is wrong. So this is one problem which the investors or which the startup companies are facing. Second thing is, India is one type of country where the capital receipts and investment, it is accounted as income. This is under strong criticism from the investors, because what is capital receipt in general term? It is a two-way transaction and it comes with the liability. For example, if I'm going to sell off a asset, if I'm going to destroy an asset and then raise capital, even that is considered as income and that is taxable. So this is one big problem which the investors are saying about the taxation system in India, right? So also they say the angel tax, it is retrospective in nature because it is the year 2018, but they are getting notice about the income which they have earned in 2016 or 17, which has gone for second round of investment or which has been spent. And interestingly, many startups have been already shut down. Even the owners of such startups or even such angel investors, they have received the angel tax notice. This is the problem. So friends, to be crisp on analysis, this is going to reduce the friendliness. This is going to affect the startup environment in country, because we are pushing for a more business friendly environment. We want more startups. We want more employment generation in manufacturing and service sector, especially at this time. If this problem arises, this will definitely affect the startup environment, because many startups, they've already commented it is better to start company in foreign nations, especially countries like Singapore, which are very startup friendly. So this is one prime problem which needs to be addressed by the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, which is under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So this is ongoing problem. Just get an idea about the problem. Understood? Now coming to our second topic, it is about the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. So why is it in news? Because the United States of America, it said it is going to withdraw from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Force Treaty, right? So now let's learn about the Intermediate Range Nuclear Force Treaty, which we will abbreviate through the presentation as INF Treaty. Understood? So this INF Treaty, this was signed between the US and the erstwhile USSR in the year 1987. So this was signed by Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev. So why they signed it? Because it was in the Cold War era, there was an increasing tension. All the NATO nations, the Western European nations, they were feared. There was a huge outcry that USSR might launch an attack on the Western European nations. This was the problem. So for this, the USA and Russia negotiated and they arrived at the agreement called as INF agreement. So what are the important provisions of the agreement? What the agreement says? It says it bans any ground-based ballistic and cruise missiles that has range of 500 to 5,500 kilometers. Any missile with this range, it should not be developed, it should not be produced, it should not be possessed, and most importantly, it should not be deployed by US and USSR. This is gist of the INF Treaty, right? So the type of agreement, the type of weapon covered under this treaty, this is important, because even though the topic says it is Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, this treaty actually covers both the nuclear weapons as well as the conventional weapons that has this range, right? Second thing is the area that is covered. Even though it is between the US and the USSR, even though it is primarily aimed at the Western European nations, this treaty says no weapon should be deployed in Europe, USA, USSR, or in any part of the world. So this has a universal coverage. That is one important thing, right? Now, why is US withdrawing right now? Because it all started in 2014 when Barack Obama led administration said USSR or the Russian Federation, it is possessing Novator missile, which is a ballistic, which is a intermediate range missile. So the problem started here. What the Russian Federation said is the unarmed aerial vehicles that is being utilized by the US, it has range greater than the range specified by the INF Treaty, and also it is capable of carrying nuclear warheads. So this is a strong violation of INF Treaty. In this way, both US and Russian Federation, they have been keeping allegations on each other, and the dispute resolution mechanisms did not work out. Following this, the US is going to withdraw. So I will tell you two important flaws that are in the treaty, which generally, first thing, it is the countries covered. As we said, it covers only USA and the erstwhile USSR and the present Russian Federation, which means if China or if India is going to manufacture a ballistic missile, if they are going to have nuclear missile, that is not considered to be violation of INF Treaty. This is one important flaw. The second thing is type of missile cover. If you could see, I said it covers or it bans ground-based missiles, which means if Russian Federation or if US is going to develop sea-based or air-based nuclear missiles or any ballistic missiles, that is not violation of INF Treaty. So these are the two primary flaws of the INF Treaty, right? Right now, the US is going to withdraw. So what are the implications of this treaty, especially for India? So was India interested in INF Treaty? No, because if India is supporting INF Treaty, it should not develop our Agni missiles and other nuclear capable missiles, so which will be violation of INF Treaty. So India is least interested in INF Treaty, but Donald Trump, he said INF Treaty could sustain only if China signs the treaty. So why is China being drawn into the argument? Friends, please understand, even though US and USSR have kept allegations on each other possessing the weapons, the actual thing is it is because of the global politics. A shift in global politics is expected because US has many of its naval bases in the islands in the Western Pacific Ocean, right? Also, there are many US Navy vessels in Western Pacific Ocean. So what happens now is, if China is having ballistic missile, if China is having intermediate range missiles, it could easily attack the US Army vessels. It could easily host an attack on US Army bases, especially the ones located near to Japan. So this was a strong security vulnerability for USA. So because of this, it quoted many reasons and ultimately it has withdrawn from the INF Treaty. So what will happen is, now US, it could expand its weapon arsenal. So it could get help from its allies and it could actually launch an attack on China if situation arises. So there is going to be increased tension between Russia, USA and especially China, and even India could be a part of this increased tension. So this is it about the treaty for the prelims perspective, right? Now our next topic is about the president rule in Jammu and Kashmir. So what is the news? President rule is imposed in Jammu and Kashmir after 6 months of governor's rule. So please understand, first there was governor's rule, then there is president rule. So this is the news. Now I'll give you a gist of the problem that has actually happened. First thing is, in June, the People's Democratic Party of Jammu and Kashmir, led by Mehbooba Mufti, it formed a coalition with the BJP and it formed a coalition government earlier. What happened in June is the BJP, the ruling party in the center, it withdrew its support. So what will happen? The PDP party-led government, it became minority. So because of this, since the state government could not function as per the constitution, governor's rule was imposed. Following it in November, the state legislative assembly was dissolved because many parties, like multiple parties, said they claimed they could prove the majority. So what the governor said is it could lead to horse trading and no stable government could be formed, which is against the spirit of the constitution. So because of this, the state legislative assembly was dissolved. And now in December, before 2 days, by midnight, the president rule was imposed in Jammu and Kashmir. So this is the overall problem that has occurred. Please understand what is important about this, what is peculiar about it. Because generally when we read in Indian polity, generally the governor's rule, it is coterminous with president rule, because under Article 356, it is coterminous. But in this case, it is different because Jammu Kashmir is the only state in Indian Union that has a separate state constitution, right? So what happens is, as per Article 92 of Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, only president rule could be imposed after 6 months of governor rule. Only the governor rule could be imposed when the state machinery could not function as per provision of the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir. Following that, if for 6 months no stable government could be established, then the president rule could be established under the Article 356. So this is what has happened. So what is going to happen now? Now the president, he took over, or he is taking over all the legislative functioning of the Jammu and Kashmir under Article 74, under which the Council of Ministers, led by Prime Minister, they will tender advice to the president. So who will perform all the functions of legislature of Jammu and Kashmir? So this is the structure. So how about the fresh elections? The fresh elections, it needs to be conducted within 6 months. Now, friends, I have a question for you. How long could the president rule be extended in Jammu and Kashmir? Please understand, as per the Constitution of India, the president rule could be extended to a maximum of 3 years. So can it go beyond it? Yes, provided the Election Commission of India certifies that free and fair election could not be conducted. If the Election Commission of India certifies that there is no ground for a proper election in a place where president rule is happening, then the proclamation of president rule could be extended beyond 3 years, right? So right now, Jammu and Kashmir is under president rule. So this is the news. So since we are talking about Jammu and Kashmir, and since I told you Jammu and Kashmir has its own state constitution, now I'll tell you few provisions which are very unique to the Jammu and Kashmir. First thing, it is constituent of Indian state under the Part 1 and Schedule 1. Jammu and Kashmir is placed as part of the Indian Union, but the boundaries cannot be altered, the name cannot be changed, or the borders cannot be altered without the approval of state legislature. This is very unique with respect to Jammu and Kashmir, because if you see, when Telangana was formed from Andhra Pradesh, all the union government just needed a simple majority by which they could alter the internal boundary of Andhra Pradesh and they could separate Telangana from Andhra Pradesh. But such things cannot happen in Jammu and Kashmir. Second thing is, Part 3 of the Indian Constitution, which says the fundamental rights, it is applicable to Jammu and Kashmir with few exceptions. For example, the freedom of property the right to freedom of property, which was struck down in the constitution under the first constitutional amendment, it is still applicable to the permanent residents of Jammu and Kashmir. They have exclusive rights over the property and everything. For example, the next one, the Part 4, which talks about DPSP, it is not applicable in Jammu and Kashmir because Jammu and Kashmir constitution has its own directive principle. Then the Part 6, which deals about the provisions of state, it is also not applicable to Jammu and Kashmir. Then Part 4A, which deals about fundamental duties, no, it is also not applicable to Jammu and Kashmir. Then the Schedule 5 and 6, which has provisions related to the scheduled tribes in India, this is also not applicable to Jammu and Kashmir. So what is peculiar about the residuary powers? For example, the union, it can make laws in union and concurrent list, right? But when it comes to a residuary power, it generally lies with union, right? Any power that is newly created, which is not covered in the Indian Constitution at the time of creation, those residuary powers generally lies with center. But in case of Jammu and Kashmir, it lays with state legislative assembly. This is one peculiar provision with respect to the Jammu and Kashmir. The most important thing is the mode the emergency is established. Jammu and Kashmir has two modes of emergency. One is the state emergency, and second is the president's rule. Please understand, this state emergency could be proclaimed, it could be established only by the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, only by the provisions of Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir. Wherein the president rule, it could be proclaimed under the Constitution of India. So basically, all through the establishment of our proclamation of president rule in Jammu and Kashmir, two types of constitution has played its role. So these are some important aspects you should know about Jammu and Kashmir, which is very much important for your prelims perspective. Understood? Now let's come to a main topic, which is strategy for New India. So what is the document? This is a document. This is a strategy that is released by the government think tank Niti Aayog, right? So This will serve as guideline for the new India, which is envisioned by 2022 by our Prime Minister. So this is the news, right? Friends, I will tell you, the way this document is framed is very much important. The first thing is the policy formation aspect, because it included technology, it included enterprises, it included science, all the scientific basis. These were included during the formation of the document. Also, the most important thing is I have given here, you can see from the PDF, the stakeholders who are involved in creation of the document. It is very much important because if you see, the union government, the state ministries, important persons like academics, scientists, farmer representatives, trade unions, think tanks, labor representatives, and especially civil societies, even the business leaders. So these many people have been consulted before forming the document. So this could be a good value addition for your mains answer writing, because these are the players, these are the primary stakeholders in development of the economy. So they have to be included in policy formation, just like how Niti Aayog has included them in the formation of strategy for New India. Now, the most important term highlighted in the document is Jan Andolan. What the government says is, economic development, it is impossible without people participation. So the government says, and the Niti Aayog says, the development should be more participative and it should be more inclusive. So we should have, or we are envisioning to have, Jan Andolan. So these are two important terms related to the framing of the document, right? Now, the document has been divided into 4 wide chapters. So basically it's about the drivers, infrastructure, inclusion, and governance. So I will give you an introduction about everything. So first thing, what they are talking about drivers is, it's basically drivers of the economic growth, right? So first thing, coming to the GDP, what the document says is, India should have a GDP growth rate of 8% by the year 2022. From 2018 to 2023, we should have a constant GDP growth rate of 8%. This is the first thing that is given. Second thing, it says there should be increased investment. So for a better India, we need increased investment. How this increased investment is going to be measured? It is based on gross fixed capital formation as a measure of GDP. So this is the measure which we are going to use, or which are going to weight the amount of investment. Second important thing given under the GDP is, it says the tax to GDP ratio. This should increase, because right now it's just 17%, and sadly it is just half of the tax to GDP ratio compared to OECD nations and many other developing nations like Brazil or South Africa or even China. So which means we have to increase our tax to GDP ratio. Now coming to farmers, the document says we have to make them as agripreneurs, basically agriculturists plus entrepreneurs. So what it says is, the farmers should be educated, they should have more hold over agricultural industries. These are the things highlighted under the farmer section. Also it says farmers could be educated about biofuels and other important aims of the government. Now coming to farming, the government, it is strongly advocating zero budget natural farming. So what is zero budget natural farming? It is basically reducing the input cost. Though the term says zero cost, it's not actually zero budget. Basically, we are going to reduce the input cost. We are going to reuse the residuary materials from the previous harvest, and it's a more complicated process, but it's a very good process because the cost will be reduced. Second thing, it is natural, which means we will be eliminating, or we will be strongly reducing chemical fertilizers, which is very much good for the environment as well as health aspect of the population. So these are two things given. About the employment and labor, friends, understand, as the economic survey says, most of the employment, it is in informal sector. So the document says the government is strongly pushing to codify labor laws, so that even informal employees, so the even informal employment section, that will be covered under certain laws, so that they will get the proper salary, work environment and everything. Now coming to minerals, it says the government should push for more exploration of minerals, because we have to reduce the cost of mineral import. For that, we have to start exploring more minerals in nation, and we need to have a mineral policy. This is given in the drivers of economic growth. Now coming to infrastructure, coming to energy sector, it says the government is strongly pushing towards the 175 gigawatt installed capacity of renewable energy by the year 2022. So this will also help India to achieve the intended nationally determined contributions which we have pledged under the Paris Climate Agreement. So these are the important highlights of energy sector. Coming to railways, it says Railway Development Authority. So this has already been approved by the government. It says the Railway Development Authority should have an integrated approach. They should push for more transparent and dynamic pricing of the railways. Also, it says an important term called as non-fare revenue. So the document highlights the Indian Railway has a potential non-fare revenue thing, because it could push up to 20% of total profit of railway. So what are the non-fare revenues? Any revenue that the railway gets out of the ticket or freight cost, that is considered to be non-fare revenue. Example, because generally if you see railway has a lot of surplus land, they could rent it out for godowns, or they could use advertisement hoardings. Even in trains, they can have advertisement hoardings. So under these things, the railway can earn about 20% of its total profit. That is a potential profit-making thing available in the railways. So these are the key highlights given under the railway section. Now coming to shipping, it says two important things. First thing is port modernization. So the government, it is planning to give viability gap funding so that more ports will be constructed and the existing ports will be modernized. So following it, we will have connectivity. So we will have a multimodal form of transport where the shipping industry, it will be connected through railways and roadways. Then we have shipping-led industry development. So that what will happen is there will be more fish processing industries and everything. So there will be more industry clusters, especially export-oriented industry clusters in the nation. So these are some of the key highlights given under the shipping section. Now coming to the digital connectivity, it says BharatNet program. This will be completed by 2019. By this, we will be, please understand, we will be connecting Gram Panchayat with the district, which in turn will be connected with state, which in turn will be connected with union. So we are going to have increased digital connectivity. We are going to deliver government services by digital form, and most importantly, the government is pushing for 100% basic digital literacy. So these are some of the good points which you could use for answer writing. So these are the things given in the digital connectivity. So now coming to the Swachh Bharat mission, the government says by the year 2019, India will be made open defecation free. This is the first thing, and most important thing is we are going to have information, education, and communication, what we call as IEC approach. We are going to bring about behavioral changes in the people so that they will have increased awareness about the sanitation. We are pushing more for a cleaner India. So these are the key highlights given in under the Swachh Bharat mission. Now coming to the inclusion, so it talks about three primary sections, namely the education, health, and marginalized section. So coming to education, it says more Atal thinking laboratories will be introduced in the nation so that there will be more innovation. The innovation environment of the nation will increase. The second important thing is it says the government is aiming 100% enrollment and 100%, most important term, retention of the students till high school. So what happens is every person should complete at least 10th standard. So this is the aim envisioned under the education section. Also, one important thing it says is, it talks about quality of teachers. For a better educational system, we need good teachers, because today's teachers, they are teaching students who will later become teachers. So this vicious cycle should be somewhere broken. The teachers should be more talented, educated. The quality of the teachers should go up, so that the quality of students, and return again the quality of teachers will go up. So this is one important thing highlighted in the education section. And now coming to health section, it says under Ayushman Bharat scheme, more healthcare centers, it will be established in the nation. And most important thing is, it talks about Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which gives insurance. So what is important about it? It says, it talks about 3 important things. So the primary, secondary and tertiary care. So it says all these primary care, it will be covered by the primary healthcare centers, wherein the secondary and tertiary, it will be covered by the hospitals. So when people go to hospitals, they should be covered under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. At least 75% of the population should be covered before 2022, so that what happens is, there will be public insurance, which is very much important, so that the poor people or the middle class people, they won't bear the heavy hospital bills. So this is envisioned under the health section, right? Also, we are going to have integrative curriculum, because all this traditional knowledge from the Ayush Ministry, it is going to be utilized along with the allopathy, so that we will have more integrated medical curriculum. Friends, understand, generally most of the secondary and tertiary care, most of the outpatients, these outpatients, they have non-communicable diseases. Most of them come for only diagnosis. So what the government is saying is, under New India, this primary healthcare centers, this primary healthcare system, it will take care of all the diagnosis. This will cover ENT, all the diabetes, all the non-communicable diseases, including the cardiac diseases. It will be diagnosed, and the primary treatment will be given in the primary healthcare center itself. So what will happen? The burden on the secondary and tertiary medical care will be reduced. This is one more important thing which is highlighted in the document, right? So now coming to the marginalized section, it directly relates the education and social indicators. Because the marginalized people, especially the particularly vulnerable tribal groups and the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, these people, because of their historical discrimination, they are till now facing poor education, they are till now stuck in poverty. So the government says it is going to introduce more schemes, and it is going to implement the present schemes more rigorously, so that these marginalized section, they will be developed. So coming to the last section, it talks about the governance. It says the second Administrative Reforms Commission report, which is given by Veerappa Moily, that contains 15 reports related to the governance of the nation. The report takes strong inspiration from it, and it says that many provisions of the ARC report, it needs to be implemented in a phased manner. Also talks about the aspirational districts. What are the aspirational districts? These are the districts all around India that is very much poor in education, that is very much poor in health, that is very much poor in sanitation, that fares poor in most of the social indicators. So the government is putting more attention on this aspirational districts. The last most important thing is about the judicial reforms. What the government is saying is, it is going to introduce Arbitration Council of India. So why are we going for Arbitration Council of India? This Arbitration Council of India, it is going to rate, it is going to accredit other arbitration organizations. So because we are planning to reduce the burden we give on the mainstream judiciary, because there is a large backlog in cases. Many cases are still pending. So what the government is planning is, it is going to introduce, or it is going to strengthen the arbitration organizations that is in the country, so that many cases could be easily solved, so that the burden on the judiciary will be reduced. This is one important provision given under the judicial reforms. So coming to the civil service reforms, this report strongly pushes for lateral entry. What the report says is, most of the times, the position and skill set in civil service, this is strongly mismatching. So this is what the report says. It says the position is not matching with the skill set. Because of this, the efficiency of the bureaucracy is slowly reducing. So what it says is there should be lateral entry. Also, it gives an important point. What it says is the economy and the polity of the nation is becoming more complex. So because of this, the policy making, this is becoming more of a specialized process. So what the government is saying is, at present the civil service is more of a generalist driven recruitment and system, but what the government is saying is, instead of a generalist civil service, we need a specialization or specialized civil service. So these are some key recommendations given in the report. Friends, please understand, the strategy for New India at 75, it's an exhaustive document, and it has a lot of good provisions which you could potentially use for answer writing. Some good suggestions are given, so it is impossible to cover it in a single video. So I have given only the introduction, right? You could actually download the report. The link is given at the end of the slide. You can utilize it and you can enhance your answer writing. Understood? So thank you for listening to the class. That's all for today. Goodbye till I see you in the next video. Please like, share and subscribe the channel for more videos. Thank you.